Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Hope you're doing very, very well. A little bit late this morning because I was just setting up a live England versus Italy Euro final preview, which I'm going to be doing straight after this on That's Football if you want to join me for that. But we're going to be talking about something a little bit different, something a bit interesting today. We will have updates on Varane and Camavinga, and there's something very interesting about the Varane deal that I don't think many people are picking up on that is abundantly clear to me this morning. An issue about his wages and some false truths there. Also, the latest on Camavinga, but mainly we're going to be talking about for sale. Spoke to somebody this morning about Manchester United sales. Quite interesting who Solskjaer would like to move on in an ideal world. A price has been set for Pogba and United would like to achieve that if Pogba wants to leave. And also obviously De Gea, Martial, Dan James, and then some interesting players that Solskjaer doesn't see as surplus to requirements that I think many of us as would. So, you know, you get into that situation of selling Pogba, De Gea, Martial. How is that good when you're keeping James, Lingard, Matic? But we'll talk about that in a minute because it's all about this big season that United are walking towards and also this big transfer window as well. So lots to get into, including the latest on Varane, which I think you'll find very interesting. But first of all, you may have noticed what I'm wearing. We are sponsored by Boohooman on the show today. And as you may have noticed, England are in the finals of the Euro 2020 tournament. And I'll say that again. England are in the final of the Euro 2020 tournament. And that, of course, means that there is no bigger time to get yourself some of the awesome Boohooman inspired Euros range. And they've kindly sent me a few items of that range. And I think we can all agree that Goldbridge is definitely bringing it home. Not just in the t-shirt stakes, but in the fashion stakes as well. You know what I mean? Actually, I might have a stake tonight. So if you want to look as flawless as me, then you can take advantage of the amazing 40% discount that they have given you, the United Stand viewers, exclusively by clicking the link on the description and using the code United Stand. As always, thanks very much to Boohooman for supporting the channel. We really appreciate it. Right, let's get on with the show. Of course, Boohooman, you know, Boohooman linking up with Jack Grealish a couple of weeks ago. They've got a clothing range with him. Goldbridge in there, it's coming home. You know, this brand's going places. But links in the video. This is actually from the active range, this top I'm wearing, but this is from the Euros range. It's coming home. So lots of good stuff you can get. Links in the video description, reasonably priced, and you can get 40% off with the code United Stand, as we've said. Big shout out to that. Dylan says it's coming to Rome. We'll be having that chat in a few minutes' time on That's Football because we've got a big preview live. I don't normally do my previews live, but I thought, you know, let's do a live England-Italy preview because I want to get both sides of the coin. Is it coming home or is it coming to Rome? We'll talk about that later. Let's talk about Manchester United now then. Now I'm going to start off about, let me just say Pogba's price has been set at 50 million quid. We'll get into the depth of that in a moment, but let me just start off with Raphael Varane. There's something really interesting about Varane. Maybe one of you can add a little bit of detail here. But another story coming out of Spain this morning is that Varane has yet not told Real Madrid that he officially wants to go. Manchester United are expecting that decision and Real Madrid are preparing for that decision, and he will come to Manchester United if he leaves Real Madrid. That is the expectation. But he's got to tell Real Madrid that he wants to go. Now, further to that story, they're saying that Real Madrid's offer of wages is 8 million and Manchester United's is 12 million. But people keep putting this in euros. Now, euros, 8 million a year, is around 150,000 euros a year. And 250,000 euros a year is around 12 million euros. But from what I know, Varane is on £9 million a year. So are Real Madrid offering him a pay cut? Because €8 million is way less than £9 million. And £8 million is less than £9 million. So there's something that's just not adding up with these wages. I've got no doubt that Manchester United will be offering him more wages than Real Madrid are offering. But it can't be €8 million when he's on £9 million already. He's on around 200 grand a week, in non-euros, in pounds. So there's something not quite going right there. I think that United are probably offering him around £12 million a year, which is 250 grand a week, and Real Madrid are probably offering him around £9 million a year. So there's probably a £3 million a year gap. I think Real Madrid are probably wanting to cap his wages at 200 grand a week, whereas United are willing to go to 250 grand a week. So yeah, we will be offering more money, definitely, but I don't think these figures can be right because he's on around 10.5 million euros a year already at Real Madrid. So maybe they're offering him a pay cut. I don't know. Maybe it's after tax, says Leo. Yeah, you don't know. But I suppose the important thing is that these figures will be, United will be offering another £3 to £4 million a year to Varane. And I think that's the most important thing. On that, we certainly won't be offering the same, because why would he leave Real Madrid? I don't think he's leaving Real Madrid because of any other reason, but there could be a pay cut in there as well. So that's quite interesting on Varane. The figures don't really add up. It could be post-tax, it could be pre-tax, but United will be offering a little bit more. But the most important thing about Varane is that at the moment that decision has not gone in, that he's told Real Madrid that he's leaving, and therefore United cannot further this deal. Because Real Madrid are like, well, look, we will negotiate with you, but we won't negotiate with you until he's told us he's going to leave, which is what Florentino Perez said about a month ago. So that's where we are with that. With Camavinga, Real Madrid apparently not interested in Camavinga. It's PSG, United and Chelsea. As we spoke about before, Romano is expecting an official bid to go in from United. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. I certainly would like to see United with Camavinga, but Varane is probably, well, either. Both. I want both. Varane was after €10 million contract, and Real Madrid said no. Manchester United offered him €12 million contract, says Chris Pankhurst. But he's on, this is what I mean, Chris, he's on more than €10 million contract anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. Copa America watch along tonight. There is a Copa America watch along tonight on That's Football. Yes, Ibs, that should make you happy. And Madrid are offering him a pay cut with captaincy, says Ram. Well, maybe there's something in that anyway. Personal terms are never a problem with United. We love overpaying, says Advath. We do love to overpay. And Anish says, just saw the Mirror has mentioned United stand in yesterday's interview with Teddy, but only the Pogba not a top player part. The bias is legit, says Anish. Oh, it's a fantastic interview with Teddy Sheringham. You can check it out on the page from yesterday. And that leads us nicely into Paul Pogba. And I think, look, I'm a big fan of Paul Pogba, but I don't fall out with people who are not fans of Paul Pogba. And I don't think Teddy Sheringham's not a fan of Paul Pogba, and I don't think Roy Keane's not a fan of Paul Pogba, or Gary Neville, or any of you who out there. I think the issue, I think what ex-players do, and I think that's why I asked. It's a good interview, because what I asked Teddy was, as a player yourself, do you see the excuses that he's not had the players around him? And I think players look at it and go, well, I just think that the consensus with Pogba is that he should have done more in his 5 years at United. And I think I agree with that. And I think any Pogba fan agrees with that. But for me, I'm like, I just don't... I understand people saying, let's move Pogba on. And apparently, we've set a price of £50 million for Paul Pogba. And imagine if we win a race for a player, I must be dreaming, says Ewan Black. But the problem for me is, I don't... Ander Herrera walked out the door and everyone was like, oh, it's fine. It wasn't fine. We didn't even bloody replace him. We promoted Scott McTominay. We didn't replace Ander Herrera. So I don't trust Manchester United to replace Paul Pogba. We've got a very bad record of letting superstars leave this club and not replace them, or replace them in-house. And United, that's what worries me about Paul Pogba. There is no doubt that Paul Pogba, talent, personality, is a superstar. Now, whether he fulfills that superstardom at Manchester United or has fulfilled it, let's have a debate. But he is a superstar. What are you going to replace Paul Pogba with? Because I don't trust this board to replace him. And I think if Pogba's walking out of this door, it's a massive, massive loss. And that's my problem with that. And Ram says those ex-players rate consistency and hard work more than talent. Well, they don't, Ram. If you watch the interview, I actually said to Teddy, people in the trenches, people like Harry Maguire, and he said, well, not when I say trenches, I don't mean hard working. I mean people who can get their foot on the ball, who want the ball, who can conduct a game. So he was quite clear about that. He doesn't value hard work and dedication above talent. And if you watch Teddy Sheringham play, you would know that he was a very talented, intelligent footballer as well. But yeah, so Pogba's price has been set at £50 million. So the conversation I had this morning, and I've got quite a comprehensive list to go through here, is that Manchester United are want to sell Paul Pogba rather than his contract run down. That's the bottom line. They don't want him to run his contract down. They're embarrassed about that happening again. And also, more importantly, away from the embarrassment, there's a major loss of money if that happens, because Paul Pogba is on very, very big wages. He cost them £90 million 5 years ago, and in any business, certainly in a bank, you buy a house for £90 million 5 years ago, you expect when you sell that house to either, you expect to retire and die in that house, or you expect to sell it for a profit. Now, the retire and die thing doesn't really work with football players, because basically you can say that a footballer is like buying a house, because if Paul Pogba signs for United at 26 or 24 or whatever he was, 23 probably, and then he retires at United when he's 35. You've had 11 years of Paul Pogba at £90 million. You've got your value out of it. If you sell Paul Pogba 5 years later for £100 million, you've made a bit of profit. But if Paul Pogba walks out the door in his prime for nothing, you've made yourself look really stupid. And not even to the football fans, to the Glazers, they'd be like, oh, hold on a minute. We invested £90 million in Paul Pogba at 24, and now he's going to walk out the door at 28 for nothing. So from a business point of view, this is bad for United, and they are desperate to sell him if Pogba makes a decision, but they're worried, and this is where I think Manchester Evening News were talking about it yesterday. Don't hold your breath on Paul Pogba, because Paul Pogba is actually apparently quite chill on this. He's like, well, at the end of the day, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do it. I don't have to sign a new contract. I don't have to leave. I can go into next season just chilled out, because in a year's time I'm making the big money. So United are feeling the pressure here because Pogba's not giving them any indication about what he wants to do. You know, he will listen to the contract offer. He is listening to what's going on. But the consensus is that Pogba will just run the contract down, and United are powerless to do anything because they can't say to Pogba, well, go to PSG now, you're for sale. It's a really difficult situation for United, but they would let him go for 50 million quid. Who's going to pay 50 million quid when they can get him for nothing in a year? Do PSG need to get Paul Pogba right here, right now, or can they wait a year? And that's the thing, isn't it? So, yeah, United and Pogba, they have set a price, but it's going to be very difficult for them because Pogba is not in any rush to make any decision at the moment. But more interestingly, I was talking with that person about, potential sales from Manchester United, and this is where it gets interesting because United are not openly looking to sell players, but they're openly putting it out there that they're open to selling players, if that makes sense. So basically, it's like on your driveway, you've got a nice car. You're happy with the car, but you've got another nice car as well, and you don't need two. You haven't put it for sale in the bloody Exchange and Mart or Auto Trader, but you've let your mates know, let people know I will sell it if I get a good offer. So that's what United are doing. There's a few players that United are like, they're not for sale, but if you make us a decent offer, we will take it. Players on that list: David De Gea, Anthony Martial, Donny van der Beek, Dalot, Pereira, Phil Jones, and that's it, 6. And Pogba, obviously 7. So there's 7 players that United, if they got decent money for, and when I say decent, realistic money, they would let them go. And that includes Donny, Martial, De Gea, Dalot, Pereira, Jones, Pogba, and Pereira, I think I said as well. So there's 7 there. Of which it's quite funny because none of them are English, except for Phil Jones. So I mean, people again will start saying, "Oh, it's Brexit FC." I don't know. I don't know what it is about that. I don't think that's it. But De Gea, obviously, they're going to go with Henderson, and they want to remove his wages. Donny is a player that well, this is speculation, but Donny is a player that they would sell if they got good money for. They're not and some of these, can I just say, we're not selling all those players. I think Martial will stay, as I said yesterday. I think Donny van der Beek will stay. There's a big chance De Gea will stay. There's a big chance Pogba will stay. So ultimately, and I think there's a big chance Phil Jones will stay. So ultimately, I think Dalot and Pereira will be the only 2 that might go. But it doesn't mean that the others aren't for sale. If a decent offer came in for Van der Beek, they'd probably take it. If a decent offer came in for De Gea, they would take it. If they can get money for Pogba, they will take it. And if a decent offer comes in for Martial, they will take it. So they're not up for sale per se, but they're definitely, if offers come in, they will let them go. They're surplus to requirements, effectively. They're not core players that Solskjaer, apart from Pogba, who he would love to keep, they're not core players. So it's going to be interesting. And you know what? What I look at that list and I go, well, look, De Gea, Pogba, Martial. I mean, a lot of clubs would take a chance on those 3 players. De Gea's 30, Pogba's 28, and Martial's 25. Those 3 players, if you said to Everton, do you want those 3 players for 150 million quid? They'd probably say no, but I'm sure they'd come back and say, well, we'll give you 100 or something like that, because they're 3 really good players. And you question what United... Well, I don't think we'll lose all 3, but you question what United would replace them with. So De Gea gets replaced with Henderson. Martial gets replaced with, I suppose, Rashford, Greenwood and James would cover Martial. And Pogba gets replaced with McTominay and Fred and maybe Camavinga. I mean, look, it could work out, but it's it's a bit of a drop off, isn't it? It is a bit of a drop off. But look, I don't think all of those players will go, but that's just what I got told, that United will listen to offers for those players. I asked about Matic, James and Lingard and was told, well, no, there's not really any indication that Matic is going to go. Dan James, nothing going on. And Lingard is very much about there is a big expectation that he will get a new contract, because most of Manchester United's squad is going to be not here for pre-season, so Lingard will play a lot of games, and the feeling is that the way Ollie operates is that he will not make a big decision, and he will just go, Jesse looks fantastic in training, which he will do, because he'll be one of the best players we've got in training, because none of our good players will be there, and Ollie will go, yeah, let's give him another chance. And I was told that this morning. The expectation is Ollie will see him in pre-season training, won't dare make a big decision, and we'll keep him. And then next season we'll see what happens. You can only go with what the information is. But I don't think that's a surprise to anybody that Matic will stay, that James will stay, and that Lingard will get a new deal. But I mean, somebody said there, Ollie's a coward, Ollie's weak, but I don't know. I don't think you can say that. Somebody said last night, he came in and he got rid of Fellaini, he got rid of Sanchez, and he got rid of Lukaku. And before people start talking about none of them were British again, look, I don't think you can level that at him when he's signing Bruno Fernandes and he's trying to sign Raphael Varane. But at the end of the day, you can't say he's weak or a coward, because what if somebody comes in like Real Madrid or Inter Milan and says, we'll give you 40 million for Donny van der Beek and we sell him? Is that weak? That's not a weak decision by a manager. That's a ruthless decision. I think it's a wrong ruthless decision, but it's still ruthless. If someone comes in and says, yeah, we'll give you 40 million for De Gea, and he sells him, that's not a weak decision. That's ruthless. That's getting rid of somebody who's 30 years of age, still in his prime, played world class against Roma in the semi-final, and is probably the most experienced United player we've got who's actually won things, and that's ruthless. Again, I think it's wrong, but it's ruthless. Martial, that would be ruthless as well. So I don't think he's weak or a coward, and the proof's always in the pudding anyway. These things may or may not happen, but I don't think it's about being weak or a coward. I think it's about having favourites. And I think that, if you go back to the example of Lingard, I think if Lingard performs well in training, which I expect him to, I think Ollie will be like, Jesse, I've known him since he was, 8. I'm going to keep him because he likes to surround. I mean, the big thing about Manchester United at the moment is it's absolutely 100% obsessed with, jobs for the boys. Like, we love to keep people in-house who have played for the club or work for the club. And, your McTominays, your Lingards, your Rashfords, these people are seen as absolutely fundamental to the football club because they've been here. And, whether you agree that or not, that's very important. Michael Carrick's now a coach. Darren Fletcher's been brought back. McKenna's been promoted. Mike Phelan's been brought back. Ollie obviously played here as well. So United are very big on this whole family sort of history with the club thing, and Lingard fits that profile perfectly. Donny doesn't. So you can see why Ollie's making those decisions. My personal thought on that, because I think you've got to have a comment on that. I think if you're good enough, you're good enough. It's like the old age adage, isn't it? If you're young and if you're good enough, you're old enough. But if you're not good enough, you're not good enough. Like, as I said, I could list off loads of players. Darren Gibson, Kieran Richardson, Tom Cleverley, Danny Welbeck. These are all young lads at United who weren't terrible, but got shipped off because they weren't quite good enough. So the thing is, all right, you might have trained with United since you were 8. Have you won anything with United? Are you good enough to play for a United team that's going to win things? That should be the only thing. And to be honest with you, I could have a United lad who's 23, who's been at the club since he was 6, but I could have a midfielder who plays in the same position, who's at Sporting Lisbon, who's never played for United, who doesn't support United, and is available for 20 million, and is better than that lad. I will bin that lad off to Preston, and I will bring the lad in from Sporting, because that's what Pep Guardiola would do, that's what Tuchel would do, that's what Zidane would do. It's about getting the best players on the pitch. And Roy Keane didn't play for Manchester United youth team, did he? Cristiano Ronaldo didn't play for our youth team. Eric Cantona didn't play for our youth team. Brian Robson didn't play for our youth team. So, I I think you can go. You've got to have an even path at the end of the day. The pre-season games should be time for the academy players to play and not the deadwood, in my opinion, says Nicholas. And Mark, do you think Ollie is really making these decisions or being told this is what will be happening, says Andy and Bruno? No, I think Ollie makes a lot of the decisions because I don't think our board would have a bloody clue about football for a start. So it's got, it'll be the collective. It'll be Ollie, Carrick, Phelan, Murta, Fletcher making these decisions. I heard Ollie would rather keep Jesse over Martial. I can't see there being a lot of outs this summer. 2 or 3 max. All keepers will stay, says Sean Turner. And hi Mark, do you think that United's inability to tap the potential of above average players affects their selling in transfer windows, says Aditya? Do you think United's inability to tap the potential of above average players affects their selling in transfer windows? I don't really understand what you're saying there. Maybe some people does, but I think United's problem is wages. We do play a lot in wages, and I think that makes it very difficult for us to sell players. We saw it with Sanchez, we saw it with Rojo, we saw it with Romero. Romero walked out the door for nothing, and we paid him 80 grand a week for a year, and he didn't play. These sort of things, they're not headlines, are they? These are things that get swept under the carpet. Oh, look at us, we bought Sancho for 80 million and we're paying Dortmund back over 5 years. Great, you paid over 20 million pounds to players last season and they hardly kicked a ball for us. Some of them didn't. Romero was with us for a year last year and we paid him 4 million. We never even gave him a minute. So, what you're doing with De Gea, you're going to bench a player on 350k a week, or even better, you're going to loan him out and pay somebody $1 million a month to have our goalkeeper. It's incompetence, it's stupidity, but that'll get swept under the carpet because it'll be like, oh, look at us, we've got Sancho and Varane. Yeah, look at what you're doing with the waste. Look at the players you're keeping at this club on 100 grand a week, and they won't even play because they're not good enough. So I think United's big problem is we do pay silly wages, and we have paid silly wages for a long time. But hopefully that's something we can look at. But here we go. Barcelona are a club that pay silly wages as well, aren't they? So, what can you say? There's another story actually coming in from Sport Witness I saw here. This is quite an interesting one, that Usman Dembele is still being looked at by Manchester United and Juventus, and that with 1 year left on his contract, another one with 1 year left on the contract, he could well come to Manchester United on a free next summer. Bit of excitement about Usman Dembele to Manchester United on a free. I'm not going to move on this one. I have to be consistent on this one. I would rather buy Nathan Redmond from Southampton than buy Usman Dembele. Usman Dembele is way better than Nathan Redmond, but Nathan Redmond will play half a season, whereas Usman Dembele might only play 25%. I mean, even in the World Cup, he came on for what? He came on as a sub for 15 minutes and then went off with a bad injury. Dembélance. He's got more injuries than that bloody wolf thing on Roadrunner. Dan James. But yeah, that wolf thing, or coyote, or what it is, that keeps trying to set the traps for Dan James. And Dan James is just too quick. He runs past, and then the rock falls on the... I'm not talking about the Rock, Dwayne Johnson. I'm talking about like rocks fall on this thing, or he falls off a cliff all the time. Dembélance has got more injuries than him. He's just injury prone. I don't care how good a player is. If you're injury prone, forget about it. United, we're trying to close gaps, not make more embarrassing signings. So I think Usman Dembele is a fantastic player, but he ain't a risk United should be making at all. And also, why do we want Usman Dembele? We've got Sancho's just come in. We've got Ahmad. We've got Palestri. We've got loads of young players. We don't need another wide attacking player. We don't. We need to start focusing on what we've got. Hi Mark, would be extremely disrespectful and disappointing to let go of De Gea, the best player in our squad over the last decade, and he's still a good goalkeeper. Stibbs, look, it'd be interesting to see what happens with De Gea. He's had a very, very frustrating close season. Obviously, he missed that penalty and didn't save any penalties, and I think that ended his season on a sour note where more people turned against him. For me, I thought the performance against Roma in the semi-final was the best goalkeeping performance I saw by any goalkeeper last season. So I'm like, if he can put in performances like that, why would you turn your back on him? So plus I like David De Gea. I have loyalty to De Gea. But I think the club is going to go down the Dean Henderson route. I think it's quite clear that that's what Ollie's going to do. I think it'd be very interesting if De Gea isn't removed from the football club, because him sat on the bench, the cameras are going to love that sort of thing, aren't they? But what I'd also say is, imagine if we sold David De Gea this summer. Would you not think that's a shit way to treat somebody as well? Because he's I don't like this because United used to win titles all the time, but David De Gea has won Player of the Year so many times. He's won a Premier League medal. He's been a massive player for us. It'd be really sad if we've seen his last game for United. So I don't know. I think United's. I don't know what everyone thinks, but I'm obviously very focused on this. It's coming home. That's what it's all about tomorrow. But as soon as that's over, and hopefully we win, and there's some parties and that. So as soon as we're over all that and we start focusing back on Premier League football again, I think there's some massive questions to be resolved at Manchester United. And yeah, it's exciting to talk about whether we're going to get Varane, whether we're going to get Camavinga, and they improve us. But there are big question marks about what is happening with Lingard, what is happening with Pogba, what are we doing with this goalkeeping situation that is unsustainable. You cannot have two goalkeepers of that quality in the same team. Even if you decide to go with Henderson, De Gea's still on the bench. That's like having Ronaldo up front with Messi on the bench. Like, it's not going to go away just because you say you're sticking with Dean Henderson, because the world will know you're paying 350k a week to a goalkeeper on the bench. It's a huge headache for United. They've got to resolve this headache. But how they do it, are they going to do it with any class? I mean, look, Rio Ferdinand said, didn't he? He was sat there after his last game for United, and wasn't it Ed Woodward who sat next to him and said, we're not renewing your contract? And he'd just played his last game, so he didn't get to have a goodbye. This club don't give a shit about whether you're a club legend or not. So maybe we've seen De Gea's last game. Maybe we haven't. What's happening with Martial? What's happening with Donny van der Beek? Is it possible that somebody could come in for Van der Beek and we sell him? So I think some really big... Dan James, Nemanja Matic. What are we doing with these players? What are we doing with Diallo? So, it depends what sort of fan you are, really. I mean, you can just look at it half glass full and look at the players that we're trying to bring in, or you can look at it, the bigger picture of there's a lot of instability at the club at the moment around the playing squad. Mark, I love De Gea, but going into the Prem season where VAR causes more penalties, why have a keeper who can't save them? I have faith in Dean, says Tyrone. I disagree with you on that, Tyrone. I don't think there's enough penalties in a game for us to think we need a penalty specialist, and I suppose you could flip it the other way and say that Henderson at the end of last season, his positional sense was poor, his decision making was poor, his coming for crosses were poor. He needs to step up next season because just his ability to save penalties is not going to be good enough when crosses are coming into the box and people are one-on-one and he's showing them half a goal. So there's question marks on both of them. I think they're both good goalkeepers, but a decision needs to be made, and if it's going to be made, it needs to be permanent. And what I mean by that is, if Dean Henderson's going to be the goalkeeper, then David De Gea needs to not be here next season. You can't have a goalkeeper of that quality on the bench with Dean Henderson as your number one, because it just it causes problems. It gets into the head of that number one goalkeeper. Hi Mark, I've not heard one media pundit or ex-player mention that we need to buy CDM. Why is this? Surely they don't think McFred is the answer, says Rory Saunders. What a question that is, Rory. And Mark, I heard somewhere that Dembele is reluctant to sign a contract with Barcelona as he's concerned he might break his fingers holding the pen, says Amit. Yeah, well, look, going back to that previous question about no mention of a CDM for Manchester United, I'm sure some ex-players have mentioned it, but I do think that McTominay and Fred do get criticised in the press and by ex-players, but everybody I speak to, whether it's on camera or off camera, who are ex-players or player pundits who haven't played for United, they all talk about a striker. I think most of them most of the ones I spoke to before we bought Sancho were like, you need a top class striker, a Harry Kane or an Erling Haaland. So it's interesting how people look at it. And look, maybe they don't watch United as much as we do. Does every ex-United player sit and watch every minute of United games like we do? I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I certainly think Match of the Day pundits, etc., do not watch Manchester United. It's pretty obvious they don't, because some of the comments they come out with. So it might just be a naivety to actually watching us play that they don't realise, because Michael Carrick's a prime example. For 10 years, he was one of United's most important players, and then he retired, and we miss him massively. But Michael Carrick was not the player that people were talking about on Sky or BT or Match of the Day or anything like that, because he's understated. People don't, unless you watch the game, you don't understand the role that Michael Carrick did. So maybe this is just headline punditry mainstream media where they focus, get a striker in because he'll score you lots of goals. They don't actually think of United. Actually, Man United's big problem is the midfield. You can buy a striker, but the midfield won't get the ball quick enough to the creators to create chances for them. So we do need a centre defensive midfielder, and anyone with a football brain knows that. We definitely do need one. What fee can we get for Henderson or De Gea, says Mikael Roach. I think Henderson you'd get 40 million quid for tomorrow. I think there'd be a queue of people who want him because he's a good goalkeeper and he is on reasonable wages. I think David De Gea is worth £40 million as well, but I don't think there's a club in world football that can afford 350 grand a week. And I think that, Donnarumma's a fantastic goalkeeper, arguably better than De Gea. He's just gone for free. There's not a market for somebody to go and buy a goalkeeper like that at the moment. United have backed themselves into a corner. Forget Ollie, forget De Gea, forget Henderson. Manchester United have backed themselves in a corner here. They gave David De Gea a 5-year deal on 350k a week a year and a half ago. He's got 3 years left on this deal. And we are screwed. It's going. I said it 6 months ago, and I'll say it again now. If David De Gea is not our number one next season, it's going to cost us between 20 and 40 million pounds to remove him, because his wages are ridiculous. And if you loan him, you'll have to pay most of those wages. People think loan is a good idea. I think it's a terrible idea, because you're paying his wages. We did it with Alexis Sanchez. Out of sight, out of mind. Okay, but we were paying 300 grand a week for Alexis Sanchez. We're paying like £1.2 million a month for Alexis Sanchez, and he wasn't even here. Imagine if we got Sancho and a centre-back last summer, as we should have done, says Fergus, could have got Camavinga and a CDM this year. We are a joke at transfers. Well, let's see what happens with that. But there's a lot. The person I spoke to this morning obviously went through that list of players there, but they said as well there's a massive amount of indecision at Manchester United. It's still a badly run club. They're trying desperately to get some notoriety, and they're focusing on incomings because they know that's what's going to sell shirts. They know that's what's going to breed positivity in the fan base. They know that's what's going to prevent protests, etc. You buy big players, people are automatically going to feel happy, but behind the scenes in relation to outgoings, it's a mess. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows no decisions have really been made. The Mata deal is a prime example of that. There could have been a ruthless, thank you very much, off you go, save a bit of money. It was like, no, stay here and hang around a bit more. Matic, it'll be the same. Lingard, they feel it'll be the same. Delo, maybe he'll stay, maybe he'll go. Pereira, he could get given a chance again. It's just, there's a massive amount of indecision. And I said, well, look, to me, do I think Man City and Chelsea? Man City have already made their decisions. Aguero, you can go. Fernandinho will give you another year. These decisions should be being made in March. In March, Ollie should be sat there with his coaches going, well, look, Lingard's doing really well at West Ham. He's never going to be a first teamer for us. Let's sort him out with a move. Let's get that 20 million in. Mata, we've hardly used him this season. Great lad to have around. If we want him as a coach, offer it now. But as a player, we ain't playing him. So, we save ourselves 100 grand a week there, 140 grand a week. He's going. Matic, no point. Can't play 2 games in a week. We've not used him at all. Another player on 100 grand a week. Let's ship him off to Italy for 5 million. Delo's doing well in AC Milan. Let's get him a move out there. Pereira, don't want him anywhere near here. Let's cash in 5 million. All this could have been done in March. We're now in a transfer window, and it's like no decisions have been made. Let's see what they're like in pre-season training. Why? Have you not seen what they're like by watching them play for AC Milan or Lazio or West Ham, or not play for you because they were training with you last year? Indecision again around the Deadwood, and this goes back beyond Ollie. This was happening in the Moyes days, in the Van Gaal days, in the Mourinho days. We're so bad at moving off the Deadwood and making decisions about it. Mark, I can remember if you did them before, but do you do pre-season watch-alongs, or is it one of those things that nobody really bothers? I've always done pre-season watch-alongs, Joshua. Jan Sommer would be a good option, says Raz. He's a good goalkeeper, yeah, but yeah, so the first watch-along is next Sunday at 1 o'clock. We're playing Derby County. So a week tomorrow will be our first watch-along of the season. So yeah, we will be doing the watch-alongs for that. God, there's been some cracking pre-season watch-alongs over the years. Real Madrid against Manchester United, I think, is one of our biggest ever watch-alongs, and that was a pre-season game at about 3 o'clock in the morning in America. I used to love the American tours, actually, because they'd be like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You'd get up and watch a game with all the, your new signings or youngsters playing. So, yeah, it'd be great. We treat legends poorly. Just look at Sergio Romero, Tabras. We treated Romero disgracefully, yeah. And I know a lot of people agree with that. We did treat Romero disgracefully. But yeah. Okay, well look, thanks everyone for watching. Please smash a like on the video. Remember, Boohoo Man, you can get your Euros range 40% off. Your activewear range 40% off with the code United Stand. The link is in the video description. Big shout out to Boohoo Man. I'm now going over onto That's Football for an England versus Italy watch-along, and I demand that Jadon Sancho starts. So I'm going to be talking about that literally in about 3 minutes' time. So go over to That's Football. The live chat is already there, and I'll see you over there for a bit more football chat, talking England versus Italy. Is it coming home or is it coming Rome? Let's see you over there in a couple of minutes. Thanks everyone for watching. We've got more content for you today on this channel as well. Please smash a like and subscribe. And Sam says you're going to be watching Conor McGregor. Well, I'll tell you about that on That's Football. Speak to you in a minute.